All right, so this Knife Thoughts video is going to be on this knife, and this is the Tyger Auto K4, and it's definitely the K4. I say that because when I got this knife, I did an unboxing video, and I didn't know which knife I was getting. It was 100% my fault, and I felt pretty silly about it. And Tyger Auto was actually kind enough to end up sending me the knife that I thought that they had sent me, which was the K7, but this is the K4. And so first of all, Tyger Auto is basically a car or kind of truck accessory company. I'm not, super knowledgeable or into cars, but they reached out to me and asked if I would be interested in reviewing some of their knives. They do have a couple knife designs that they have branded under their name. And I said, yeah, I'm always interested in checking out new brands, new companies, something I really enjoy doing. So they sent both this and the K7, which is the other model. Now, this knife is a very hefty kind of hard use type knife. It's about $70, so it's a pretty budget friendly knife. You can get it from Tyger Auto. You can also get it on Amazon. But it is a kind of thick bladed, so you can see that this has pretty thick stock. I'll show you it in comparison to, here is an Ocaso Strategy. So the Tyger K4 is a little thicker than your typical knife. The stock is a little thicker. It does have kind of what you might call a compound Tonto grind, so it has a hollow grind here on the main grind and then a flat grind here towards the tip. It's definitely a modern Tonto. It has, the straight edge and then the hard corner, but then a curved kind of belly towards the tip there. So, even more modern than just an American Tonto. And it has this really cool rock pattern on the G10. So hopefully you can see that there. I think that it's a really well done rock pattern, and actually it's something that I don't see often, if ever, on modern knives, budget knives. The only other knife that I can think of that had this is the Civivi Spiny Dogfish. And, similar price range, maybe a little bit more on the Spiny Dogfish, but also G10 and a rock pattern, but a little bit different of a type rock pattern. And I think that this looks really kind of burly, kind of outdoorsy, kind of rough and tumble look to it, which goes with the overall aesthetic and design of this knife. So I do like this rock pattern on the handle. Now this has an opening slot. You can see it's kind of an oblong slot here. And I'm always a little wary of that type of opening method because sometimes they don't work great for me, but this one actually works pretty well, and that's because it has hard edges. So sometimes companies will make these edges rounded and it makes it difficult to get a good, catch on it. This one you can open pretty easily. Now it is mostly going to be a slow roll kind of traditional opening style. You can flick it, but I think it works best as a traditional slow roll, just opening the knife to use it. And again, that goes along with the fact that this isn't made to be a super fancy, enthusiast high-end knife. This is a knife to use and maybe abuse, and it should be able to take it. Now, one thing you might notice in there is a little bit of rust. That's just because it's kind of tough to get in there sometimes, and I think I was using this cutting some food and got some water or juice or something in there, and so it is Aus-8. Aus-8's not, it's not stainless. It's not the most stainless steel, and it's definitely not a super steel, but again, this is a budget-friendly knife. It's made to use. I have had lots of good experiences with Aus-8. So, for example, one of the most classic user budget knives is the Ontario Rat Model 1, and you can see that it is in Aus-8. So just as an aside, Ontario Knife Company was bought by Blue Ridge Knives. I did do an article on that, so check that out if you'd like on my website, knifethoughts.com. But it's, Aus-8, and Aus-8 for me works well. It's really easy to sharpen, but you have to make sure that you don't leave any, onion juice or whatever that was on the blade for too long. But as you can see, if you, can get in there, that wipes off, and you could get a sunshine cloth. A product that I really like is the sunshine cloth, and just run it through there, maybe even just a Q-tip, and that'll come off relatively easily. It's not a carbon steel, but maybe not the most stainless steel, and again, not a super steel. But for me, AUS 8 works well and is easy to sharpen. And, you know, while a lot of people might scoff at it, I think that it's, you know, perfectly in line with the other budget steels, or the other steels used on budget knives for the most part. So I don't mind the AUS 8. It has cut well for me. Now, as for the grind, it's not the thinnest grind, so you can kind of see behind the thickness behind the edge here. You know, definitely not super thin, not the thinnest knife out there, but that goes again with the kind of intended use, in my opinion, of this knife as a hard use knife. And, you know, even thicker here behind the flat grind of the tip. But when I think of people who are into cars, into working on cars, into putting car accessories on, you know, I think of my cousins. Two of my cousins are really into, you know, cars and generally, like, you know, building things and stuff much more than I am. And they're really good at it. And this is not at all a criticism of the way you use your knives, but they use their knives a little harder than I do. I'm a knife enthusiast, right? I'm not a car enthusiast, I'm a knife enthusiast. And, you know, when I use a knife, I usually, if I am prying or scraping, I'll use a pry bar, something like that. But I think a lot of people who do that kind of thing, you know, building cars, putting car accessories on, working on their cars, do use their knives for scraping, prying, you know. And this type of thicker edge, particularly this flat grind at the tip, is going to work well for that. I think you can pry, you can do a little bit of scraping and not have to worry about it too much. So I think that it goes along with the general aesthetic. Again, though, don't buy this expecting it to be as thinly ground and slicey as a Civivi Elementum. It's just not going to be. Since I'm mentioning it, why don't I just show you? So you can see the difference in thickness behind the edge there. But again, I do think it goes along with the intended use. Now, this is also a pretty thick liner lock, and it locks up well. No forward and back play. When unlocked here, no side-to-side play. I think in the unboxing I thought it might have some side-to-side, and I don't think I had to adjust it. I think it just didn't, and I was imagining it. But it's nice and solid, and I did oil this and it broke in. So, you know, it's not the smoothest knife. It is pretty tight still. So it's, again, it's not really the most flippy knife. You can flip it open, but it's not gonna swing closed too easily. You can see I have to really kind of shake it to get it to close, but from open, when I unlock it, it will start to drop. So it's not rough, but it's not the most drop shutty closed knife. I don't think that's what you should expect if you do get this knife. Now, one interesting thing is how this lock interface looks. I've never really seen that. It looks like somebody went at it with a Dremel. Like, I'm not really sure why it looks like that. It doesn't really seem to affect anything. It locks up well, it doesn't slip, you know, it doesn't have play. I don't really know why it looks like that. It doesn't stick on the lock interface there. I don't know why it looks like that. It doesn't look great as compared to, you know, another liner lock or frame lock knife. Let me see if I can find one that will show. So here is a Finch Devil's Finger, and you can see the difference there. There's not those kind of vertical lines versus the normal horizontal lines. Really rough looking, and I'm not sure why that is, but it doesn't really seem to affect anything. So just something to point out. And again, goes along with the fact that this is not a polished knife. It's not the most polished construction out there. When you buy this knife, you should buy it wanting a hefty, heavy-duty knife, a big knife. I'll show you some comparisons here. Here is again the Rat 1. That's a great comparison. You can see that the Tyger Auto is heftier, you know, maybe a little longer, but definitely bigger. And here is a Benchmade full-size Griptilian. You can see that the Tyger Auto is also heftier. So it is not by any means a small, petite gentleman's knife. This is a hefty knife for using, for putting to work, and I think that that's what you should expect, both in the design and in the construction. Now, the pocket clip is kind of interesting. At first look, it looks like a typical paddle pocket clip, and it has the Tyger Auto logo, which I actually like. I like this type of kind of minimal animal head logos. But then you turn it sideways and it has like an unusually long straight area here. I've never seen a pocket knife have a clip with quite that long of a straight area. What is the reason for that? I really don't know. I don't know if there's some reason maybe to make it catch on. I'm gonna go ahead and think of the reason that this is so that it catches on your car seatbelt or seat when you're getting in and out of the truck a little bit less. Is that the case? I don't think so. I think that if anything, it might make that happen more, but it didn't happen to me. So I'm just kind of making something up that might be the reason why this is so long, but it's definitely long. I'll give you a comparison to a Glow Rhino Fermi. So this is a much smaller knife, but you can see the difference in the length of the straight area past the clip. It's like twice as long, maybe more. So definitely unusual. But you know, I think that this is a good user knife. If you want a knife that you can get, you know, not be flipping it open and closed as a fidget tool all the time. Oh, speaking of the clip, it did come tip down, which is another thing that kind of user-oriented knives tend to do. But I like tip up, so I changed it. But you know, I don't think you should get this as like a fidget knife, you know, like a flipper or an enthusiast knife. This is a knife that you get because you want something hefty, something that's going to, you know, stick in your hand once you open it, that you can open, use, scrape, you know, fuel lines. I don't know anything about cars, but scrape things, cut things, and you know, sharpen it easily without having to have special tools, and use it and not worry about how fancy it is. So I have enjoyed getting to check out this Tyger Auto K4 because it is different than a lot of the knives that I check out, and it's good to see something different sometimes. So if you're looking for that type of knife, maybe check this out, and I'll have a link in the description where you can find it, and definitely let Tyger Auto know that you heard about it on Knife Thoughts. If you enjoyed the video, make sure you give it a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, click the bell, and select all so you know when I post new videos. Check out my website, knifethoughts.com, where I post articles on knives like this and knife-related topics. And last but not least, as always, don't forget to go out and do good.